Chell. Alvarez's life has always revolved around responsibility. At 25, she is the breadwinner of her family, working as a receptionist at a modest hotel in the heart of the city. With a stern mother and siblings to support, Chell has little time for herself. Her days are a blur of routines. Wake up, work, go home, repeat. One day, during a particularly busy morning at the hotel, Chell encounters a new guest. Troy Saavedra strides in confidently, his air of elegance and mystery immediately catching her attention. However, their interaction is anything but smooth. Troy, unamused by the lack of attention to detail in his reservation, clashes with Chell, who's trying her best to juggle multiple tasks. "You might want to double-check next time," Troy remarks, his tone sharp but not unkind. Chell narrows her eyes but keeps her professionalism intact. "I apologize for the mix-up, sir. We'll have it fixed immediately." Despite the initial friction, there's an undeniable spark between them. Troy notices the fire in Chell's eyes, an intriguing mix of determination and vulnerability. Chell, on the other hand, finds herself both irritated and captivated by his confidence. Later that evening, Chell unwinds with her best friend, Wong, over coffee. Wong is her polar opposite, bubbly, carefree, and in love. Wong gushes about her new boyfriend, Ethan, a wealthy businessman she met serendipitously. Chell smiles at her friend's happiness, but feels a pang of envy. Love seems like a luxury she can't afford. The next day, Troy appears at the hotel again, this time with a friendlier demeanor. He notices Chell at the front desk, her focus unwavering as she assists a demanding customer. When she finally looks up, their eyes meet. "Miss Alvarez," he begins, a playful smirk on his lips. "Have you forgiven me for my earlier rudeness?" Chell raises an eyebrow. "I wasn't aware I had a choice." Troy chuckles, charmed by her wit. From that moment, he begins frequenting the hotel, finding excuses to talk to Chell. Their conversations are filled with teasing banter, but beneath the surface, a genuine connection begins to form. Over the next few weeks, Chell and Troy develop an unexpected friendship. Troy opens up about his life, revealing that he comes from a wealthy family but chose to leave it behind to search for his half-siblings. Chell is surprised by his vulnerability, realizing that behind his confident facade lies a man searching for belonging. Chell shares her own struggles, talking about her role as the provider for her family and her dreams of someday finding her own path. Troy listens intently, his admiration for her growing with every word. One evening, as they sit together in the hotel lobby, Troy says, "Chell, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You deserve so much more than you allow yourself to dream of." Chell laughs softly, brushing off his compliment. "Dreams don't pay the bills, Troy." "Maybe not," he replies, his tone serious, "but they give us something to fight for." Chell begins to see a different side of Troy, a man who, despite his privileged background, understands struggle and sacrifice. Their connection deepens, though Chell remains cautious. Her past has taught her not to trust too easily, and she's not ready to let anyone into her heart. Troy, however, is patient. "I'll wait," he tells her one day, his voice steady and sincere. "I'll wait until you're ready." Chell's heart stirs, but she quickly pushes the feeling aside. "Don't hold your breath, Saavedra," she says with a smirk, though her tone lacks its usual edge. Chell Alvarez was never one to let her guard down easily. Yet, somehow, Troy Saavedra managed to chip away at her walls. Over the following weeks, their connection deepened as they found themselves spending more time together. Whether it was Troy dropping by the hotel to share a cup of coffee or the two of them engaging in playful arguments about trivial things, Chell couldn't deny that she enjoyed his company. One late afternoon, Troy invited Chell to take a walk in the nearby park. Initially hesitant, she eventually agreed. As they strolled, Troy spoke about his ongoing search for his half-siblings, a task he had been pursuing for years. "I've always wondered what they're like," he said, his gaze distant. "Do they look like me? Do they know I exist? It's strange, isn't it, to feel like you belong somewhere but not know where that is?" Chell's heart softened at his vulnerability. "I think," she began, choosing her words carefully, that you're braver than you give yourself credit for. Not everyone would go to such lengths to find family. Troy smiled at her, his gratitude evident. And you, Chelleen, are stronger than you realize. I see it in the way you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Her cheeks flushed at his compliment, and for a moment, she let herself bask in the warmth of his words. But the flicker of doubt in her heart reminded her not to get too comfortable. Despite their growing closeness, Chell remained wary of her feelings for Troy. She often found herself overthinking their interactions, questioning whether his kindness was genuine or just another game rich men played. One evening, Wong and Ethan invited Chell to dinner, and Troy unexpectedly tagged along. The double date-like atmosphere put Chell on edge, especially with Wong's not-so-subtle hints about her and Troy. "Chell, don't you think Troy's a catch?" Wong teased, nudging her friend. Chell rolled her eyes. "He's all right, I guess." Troy smirked, leaning closer to Chell. "Just all right? I'll have to work harder, then." The playful banter earned laughter from everyone at the table, but deep down, Chell felt a mixture of embarrassment and longing. She couldn't deny the attraction she felt toward Troy, but the fear of heartbreak loomed over her like a dark cloud. Later that night, as Troy walked her home, he broke the silence. "You know, Chell, you don't have to keep pushing me away." She stopped in her tracks, surprised by his directness. "I'm not pushing you away," she replied defensively. "You are," he said gently, stepping closer. "And I get it. You've been hurt before, but I'm not here to hurt you. I just want a chance to know you better." Chell's resolve wavered, but instead of responding, she changed the subject. "It's late. I should get inside." Troy nodded, his disappointment evident, but he didn't press further. "Good night, Chelleen." As she closed the door behind her, Chell leaned against it, her heart pounding. Troy's patience was both admirable and frustrating for Chell. He never pushed too hard, but always made it clear that he cared for her. One day, however, their fragile dynamic was put to the test. It happened during a staff meeting at the hotel where Chell worked. A disgruntled guest accused her of being unprofessional, and though the claim was baseless, the incident left Chell humiliated. To make matters worse, Troy happened to walk in just as the guest was shouting at her. Without hesitation, Troy stepped in. "Excuse me, but I believe you're mistaken," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Miss Alvarez is one of the most professional employees here. Perhaps you're the one who needs to reassess your behavior." The guest sputtered in embarrassment and quickly left, but Chell was far from grateful. "I didn't need your help," she snapped as they walked outside after the meeting. "I wasn't trying to undermine you," Troy said, his tone gentle. "I just couldn't stand by and watch someone treat you like that." Chell crossed her arms, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You don't get it, do you? I've been fighting my own battles for years. I don't need a knight in shining armor swooping in to save me." Troy's expression softened. "I'm not trying to save you, Chell. I just want to stand by your side." Her heart ached at his words, but her fear of vulnerability held her back. "I don't need anyone by my side, Troy." The disappointment in his eyes was evident, but he didn't argue. "If that's how you feel, I'll respect it. But I hope one day, you'll see that letting someone in doesn't make you weak." As Troy walked away, Chell felt an overwhelming wave of regret. For the first time, she wondered if pushing him away was truly the right thing to do, or if she was simply too afraid to let herself be loved. Chelleen Alvarez found herself unable to shake Troy Saavedra from her mind. Despite her attempts to keep him at arm's length, his persistence, patience, and charm were undeniably endearing. Yet, every time she considered opening up to him, her past would resurface, reminding her of the pain and betrayal she had endured. One quiet afternoon, while taking a break at the hotel cafeteria, Wong joined her. Her best friend, ever the curious and caring soul, couldn't resist probing into Chell's relationship, or lack thereof, with Troy. "You know," Wong began as she sipped her iced coffee, "Troy is a rare breed. He's genuine, kind, and obviously smitten with you." Chell frowned. Smitten? That's a strong word. It's the truth, Wang countered. And yet, you keep pushing him away. Why, Chell? Chell hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. It's not that simple, Wang. I've been hurt before, and I'm not sure I'm ready to go through that again. Not every guy is like him, Wang said softly, referring to Chell's ex, who had left her emotionally scarred. You deserve to be happy, Chell. Maybe it's time to let go of the past and give someone like Troy a chance. The words lingered in Chell's mind long after their conversation ended. That night, as she lay in bed, memories of her ex-boyfriend flooded her thoughts. The promises he had made, the betrayal she had endured. It was a cycle of pain she had vowed never to repeat. The next day, Chell arrived at work determined to focus on her duties and keep her emotions in check, but fate had other plans. As she organized files in the hotel office, Troy appeared at her desk, his usual confident smile in place. Busy? He asked casually. Always, Chell replied, not looking up from her work. Well, I have a proposition, Troy said, leaning against the desk. Take a break and join me for lunch. My treat. Chell hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea. Come on, Chell. It's just lunch. No strings attached, he coaxed. After a moment's deliberation, she sighed. Fine, but just lunch. They went to a nearby cafe, where the atmosphere was relaxed and the food surprisingly good. As they ate, Troy began to share more about his search for his half-siblings. I've been following leads for months, he admitted. I know they're here in the Philippines, but finding them has been harder than I expected. Chell listened intently, her heart aching for him. Do you ever feel lost? She asked hesitantly. Every day, Troy said with a small smile. But meeting people like you makes the journey worthwhile. Chell felt a blush rise to her cheeks. I'm nothing special, Troy. On the contrary, he said, his gaze earnest. You're one of the most remarkable people I've ever met. For the first time, Chell allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, Troy's feelings for her were genuine. Despite the progress they seemed to be making, Chell's fears and insecurities still held her captive. She found herself overanalyzing every interaction with Troy, questioning his motives and her own feelings. One evening, Troy invited her to a charity gala hosted by the hotel. Chell reluctantly agreed, knowing it was part of her job to attend such events. The gala was a grand affair, filled with influential guests and opulent decorations. Chell felt out of place in her simple dress, but Troy, ever the gentleman, made her feel at ease. You look stunning, he said as they entered the ballroom. Thanks, she mumbled, feeling self-conscious. As the night progressed, Chell noticed several women vying for Troy's attention. One woman in particular, a glamorous socialite named Bianca, seemed especially interested. Chell tried to ignore the pang of jealousy in her chest, but when she saw Bianca laughing and touching Troy's arm, she couldn't contain her frustration. I think I'll call it a night, Chell said abruptly, turning to leave. Troy caught her arm. Chell, wait, what's wrong? Nothing, she said, avoiding his gaze. I just don't belong here. That's not true, Troy said firmly. You belong here as much as anyone else. And as for Bianca, she doesn't mean anything to me. Chell looked up at him, her emotions swirling. Why do you care so much, Troy? Why me? Because you're worth it, he said simply. And I'll keep proving that to you, no matter how long it takes. Chell's heart ached at his words, but the fear of letting him in was still too strong. Without another word, she walked away, leaving Troy standing alone in the crowd. Chelline Alvarez couldn't shake the events of the gala. Troy's words lingered in her mind, replaying over and over like a broken record. Because you're worth it. His unwavering confidence in her, even when she doubted herself, unsettled her. The following week, she threw herself into work, avoiding Troy whenever possible. But fate seemed determined to push them together. One afternoon, the hotel management assigned them both to oversee preparations for an upcoming VIP event. The task required them to spend hours coordinating schedules, suppliers, and logistics. "I'll handle the caterers," Troy offered as they worked side by side in the conference room. "No, I'll do it," Chell said quickly, her tone sharper than intended. Troy raised an eyebrow. "Why do you insist on doing everything yourself? Delegation is a valuable skill, you know?" "I just prefer to keep things in my control," she muttered, not meeting his gaze. Troy sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Chell, you can't keep running from me forever." Her head shot up. "I'm not running." "Aren't you?" he challenged. "Every time I get close, you push me away. Every time I try to show you I care, you put up walls. What are you so afraid of?" The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. For a moment, Chell considered opening up, but the fear of rejection and heartbreak kept her silent. "Let's just focus on the event," she said curtly, turning back to her laptop. Troy didn't push further, but the tension between them was palpable. The night of the VIP event arrived, and the hotel was abuzz with activity. Chell wore a sleek black dress, her hair styled elegantly. She looked every bit the professional, but inside, she was a bundle of nerves. As the evening progressed, she caught glimpses of Troy mingling effortlessly with the guests. His charm and charisma were undeniable, and Chell couldn't help but admire him from afar. Halfway through the night, a sudden storm rolled in, drenching the city in heavy rain. Power flickered, and for a brief moment, the hotel's ballroom was plunged into darkness. When the lights returned, Chell found herself outside on the terrace, seeking a moment of solitude. The sound of rain hitting the pavement below was oddly soothing. "Mind if I join you?" Troy's voice broke through her thoughts. She turned to see him standing there, his suit slightly damp from the rain. "It's a free country," she said, trying to sound indifferent. They stood in silence for a while, the tension between them thick. Finally, Troy spoke. "Do you ever get tired of pretending, Chell?" "Pretending what?" "That you don't feel anything for me," he said quietly. Her breath hitched. "Troy, just be honest with me," he interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. "If you truly don't care, I'll walk away. But if there's even a part of you that feels something, let me in." Chell's defenses crumbled. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared of getting hurt again." Troy stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "I can't promise I'll never hurt you, Chell, but I can promise that I'll always fight for us. You just have to give me a chance." In that moment, the walls around her heart began to crack. The days following their conversation on the terrace were different. Chell found herself opening up to Troy, bit by bit. She shared stories of her past, her dreams, and even her fears. Troy, in turn, revealed more about his search for his half-siblings. He spoke of his late mother, his estranged father, and the longing to find the family he had never known. Their bond deepened, and for the first time in years, Chell felt hopeful. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, an unexpected visitor arrived at the hotel, a woman named Vanessa, claiming to be Troy's half-sister. Vanessa's arrival stirred up emotions and questions that neither Chell nor Troy were prepared to face. Was she truly his sibling? And if so, what secrets would she bring with her? As Troy delved into Vanessa's claims, Chell stood by his side, determined to support him through whatever lay ahead. Together, they faced the uncertainties of the future, their connection growing stronger with each passing day. Vanessa's arrival at the hotel brought a whirlwind of emotions for Troy. For years, he had been searching for his half-siblings, hoping to fill the void left by his fractured family. Now, standing face to face with a woman claiming to be his sister, he was caught between skepticism and hope. Chelleen observed the interaction quietly, her heart aching for Troy. She knew how much this meant to him. Vanessa, a poised woman in her early 30s, bore a striking resemblance to Troy's mother, further fueling his curiosity. "I've been looking for you for a long time," Vanessa began, her voice trembling slightly. "I wasn't sure how to approach you, but when I found out you were here, I had to come." Troy crossed his arms, his expression guarded. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Vanessa reached into her bag and pulled out a faded photograph. It was a picture of a younger Troy with his mother, and in the background was a little girl, Vanessa. "I don't expect you to believe me right away," she said softly, "but I have proof. I have more pictures, letters from our mother, and I even have her necklace. She left it for you." Troy took the necklace, his fingers brushing against the familiar pendant he hadn't seen in years. A mix of emotions, joy, anger, and disbelief, washed over him. Chell stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "Troy, maybe you should hear her out." Vanessa's eyes flicked to Chell, gratitude evident in her gaze. "I just want a chance to explain. I'm not here to disrupt your life, Troy. I want to know my brother." Over the next few days, Troy and Vanessa spent hours going through old photos, letters, and mementos. As the pieces of their shared history began to fall into place, Troy found himself believing Vanessa's story. Chelleen, meanwhile, did her best to give Troy space while supporting him from the sidelines. She admired his determination to reconnect with his family, but she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that Vanessa's sudden appearance might complicate their budding relationship. One evening, Troy invited Chell to join him and Vanessa for dinner. "I want you to be part of this," he told her. "You're important to me, and I need you to know my family." Chell hesitated but ultimately agreed. At dinner, Vanessa proved to be charming and warm, sharing stories about her own life and the struggles she faced growing up without their mother. But as the evening wore on, Vanessa's probing questions about Chell's relationship with Troy made her uneasy. "So, how serious are you two?" Vanessa asked with a teasing smile. Chell glanced at Troy, unsure how to answer. "We're figuring things out," Troy replied, his tone firm but kind. "Chell means a lot to me, Vanessa. That's all you need to know for now." Vanessa raised an eyebrow but didn't push further. As Troy grew closer to Vanessa, Chell began to notice subtle changes in his behavior. He seemed preoccupied, his thoughts often elsewhere. Though she understood the importance of his reunion with Vanessa, she couldn't help but feel a growing distance between them. One afternoon, while Chell was organizing event details at the hotel, Vanessa approached her. "Chell, can we talk?" Vanessa asked, her tone friendly but serious. Chell nodded, setting aside her clipboard. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Vanessa hesitated before speaking. "I just wanted to thank you for supporting Troy. He's been through so much, and I can see that you care about him deeply." "I do," Chell admitted. "I want him to be happy." Vanessa smiled, but there was a flicker of something unreadable in her expression. "That's good to hear, but I hope you understand that family comes first. Troy and I have a lot to catch up on, and he needs to focus on rebuilding those bonds." Chell frowned, unsure of Vanessa's intentions. "I would never stand in the way of Troy reconnecting with his family." "I know," Vanessa said quickly, "but relationships can be tricky. I just hope you're prepared for the possibility that things might change." The conversation left Chell unsettled. Was Vanessa subtly warning her, or was she overthinking things? Meanwhile, Troy began to notice Chell pulling away. She became more reserved, less willing to open up about her thoughts and feelings. One evening, he confronted her. "Chell, what's going on? You've been distant lately." Chell hesitated, unsure how to express her insecurities without sounding irrational. I feel like there's a lot happening right now, and I don't want to add to your stress." "You're not adding to my stress," Troy said firmly. "You're part of my life, Chell. I want us to face things together." Chell smiled weakly, but deep down, she wasn't sure if their bond could withstand the challenges ahead. Vanessa's presence brought both joy and tension into Troy's life. While he cherished the newfound bond with his half-sister, the dynamics between him and Chelleen began to shift subtly. Chell felt like an outsider in the unfolding reunion, unsure of her place in Troy's life. One day, Troy invited Chell and Vanessa to join him for a charity event hosted by one of his business associates. The event was glamorous, filled with high-profile guests, and a perfect opportunity for Troy to integrate Chell into his world more prominently. Chell was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed, hoping it would help her reconnect with Troy. She wore a simple yet elegant black gown, her nervousness hidden behind a poised smile. The evening began smoothly, with Troy introducing Chell to influential people and proudly referring to her as someone special in his life. Vanessa, on the other hand, seemed to take center stage, effortlessly charming the crowd and even overshadowing Chell at times. During the event, Vanessa subtly pulled Troy aside. "She's lovely," Vanessa said, gesturing toward Chell, "but are you sure she's ready for this kind of life? It's not easy being with someone in your position." Troy frowned. "What are you trying to say, Vanessa?" "I'm just looking out for you," she replied smoothly. "I want to make sure you're with someone who can handle everything that comes with being part of your life, your family, your responsibilities, your status." Troy's jaw tightened. "Chelline is strong, Vanessa. Don't underestimate her." Vanessa smiled, but her words lingered in Troy's mind, planting a seed of doubt he didn't want to entertain. The charity event had left Chell feeling more out of place than ever. Vanessa's seamless integration into Troy's life and the subtle way she seemed to challenge Chell's presence only deepened her insecurities. Troy noticed her withdrawal and decided to take her out for a quiet dinner to clear the air. They went to their favorite spot, a cozy restaurant by the beach, where they could talk without interruptions. "Chell, talk to me," Troy urged as they sat by the candlelit table. "You've been distant, and I need to know why." Chell hesitated, her fingers playing with the edge of her napkin. "It's just, everything feels different since Vanessa came into the picture. I'm happy for you, Troy, but I can't help feeling like I'm being pushed aside." Troy reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You're not being pushed aside. Vanessa is my sister, and yes, reconnecting with her has been overwhelming, but it doesn't change how I feel about you." Chell met his gaze, tears welling up in her eyes. "I want to believe that, but I can't shake this feeling that I don't belong in your world." "You belong with me," Troy said firmly. "Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise, not even Vanessa." Their conversation eased some of Chell's worries, but the cracks in their relationship remained. Things came to a head when Vanessa orchestrated a family gathering at Troy's estate. She insisted that Chell join them, claiming it was an opportunity for her to get to know the family better. Chell reluctantly agreed, though she couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa had ulterior motives. The gathering was extravagant, with relatives and family friends filling the grand hall. Chell tried to blend in, but she felt out of place among the sophisticated crowd. During the evening, Vanessa approached her with a glass of wine. "You seem tense," Vanessa said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Chell replied, forcing a polite smile. Vanessa leaned in slightly. "You know, being with Troy isn't just about love. It's about adapting to his lifestyle, understanding his responsibilities. Not everyone can handle that." Chell felt her cheeks flush. "I love Troy, and I'll do whatever it takes to support him." Vanessa's smile widened. "Good. Just remember, his family will always be his priority." The words stung, but Chell refused to let Vanessa see her falter. Later that night, Troy found Chell sitting alone on the balcony, gazing at the stars. "What's wrong?" he asked, sitting beside her. Chell hesitated before speaking. "Do you ever feel like your family's expectations will always come before what you want?" Troy sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated. I want to make them proud, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sacrifice what I have with you." Chell turned to him, her eyes searching his. "I just need to know that I'm enough for you, Troy. That I'm not competing with your family for your attention." Troy cupped her face gently. "You're more than enough, Chell. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." His words comforted her, but she couldn't ignore the lingering tension between her and Vanessa. The relationship between Troy and Chell continued to be strained, especially with Vanessa's constant interference and the expectations from Troy's family looming over them. In Chapter 19, the couple faces a pivotal moment where truths are revealed and emotions reach their breaking point. One evening, Troy invited Chell to a quiet dinner at his countryside estate, a secluded place where they could escape the distractions of the city. As the sun set over the rolling hills, they found themselves in a more intimate setting. "Chell," Troy began, his voice soft but firm, "there's something I need to tell you, something that's been weighing on me for a while." Chell's heart raced as she noticed the seriousness in his expression. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't been completely honest with you," Troy admitted, his eyes searching hers for understanding. "Vanessa isn't the only family connection I've been dealing with. There's a lot more, so much more you don't know." Chell stared at him, her breath catching in her throat. "What do you mean?" Troy took a deep breath before continuing. "My father, he has connections in high places. He's powerful, wealthy, and influential, and he's always wanted control over my life. He's been manipulating my every move, pressuring me into decisions that I didn't agree with." Chell's hands trembled slightly as she listened. "And Vanessa?" "Vanessa is his favorite. She's his pawn to keep everything in check. I was meant to follow in his footsteps, but I refused. I want to make my own path, our own path. That's why I'm here, in the Philippines, searching for my siblings. But it's not as simple as cutting ties. There are expectations, deals, and burdens." Tears filled Chell's eyes as the weight of his words sank in. "And you didn't tell me because you thought I couldn't handle it?" "I didn't want to drag you into this mess," Troy said, his voice heavy with regret. "I thought if I kept things simple, maybe you wouldn't have to face the same struggles I've been fighting. But it's not that easy, is it?" Chell was torn. Part of her wanted to walk away from the overwhelming life Troy described, but another part, no, a deeper part, loved him too much to abandon him now. She needed time to process what he revealed. Days passed, and Troy continued to try and reassure her. However, their bond was tested when Vanessa's manipulative tactics became more apparent. During a family gathering, Vanessa deliberately invited high-profile individuals to gain favor with Troy's father. Chell noticed how Troy seemed to shift his attention to maintain appearances, and it hurt her deeply. She pulled him aside later that evening, her voice trembling with emotion. "Troy, why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "You're letting them control you." "I have responsibilities, Chell. You don't understand how deep this goes. If I don't play their game, they'll crush me. Our future, our dreams," he explained, his eyes pleading for her understanding. "But what about us?" Chell cried out. "What about you? You're losing yourself in all this, and I don't want to lose you too." Troy hugged her tightly, his voice breaking. "I can't let them win. I'm trying to protect you, but in doing so, I'm pushing you away." Troy's confession and the heated argument brought Chell to a crossroads. She couldn't bear the thought of living a life controlled by the expectations of Troy's family. She needed to see if he was truly willing to fight for their love or let them dictate their future. Determined to break free, Chell made a bold decision. She demanded a night away from everything. No family gatherings, no business discussions, just them. It was a night meant to remind Troy why they fell in love in the first place. At sunset, they sat by a secluded beach, watching the waves crash against the shore in a rhythmic dance. "Troy," Chell began, her voice steady, "I love you, but I can't continue this way. We need to be a team, a partnership, not just me supporting you through your burdens." Troy held her hand tightly, a mix of emotions playing across his face. "I'll fight for us, Chell. I'll break free from their chains, whether it takes days, months, or years. But you have to believe in me." Chell squeezed his hand gently. "I do believe in you, but more than that, I need to believe in us." Their conversation wasn't the end of their struggles, but it marked the beginning of a more united front against the forces that sought to tear them apart. Together, they vowed to forge their own destiny, no matter the cost. After their emotional breakthrough in Chapter 21, Troy and Chell's relationship faced a new challenge. The pressure from Troy's family intensified, and Vanessa's manipulations became more calculated. Every social event seemed to be a test of their resolve. Chell knew that Troy's family would not easily relinquish control. The stakes were high, and the emotional toll was taking a toll on both of them. But she had seen a shift in Troy. He was determined to stand his ground, even if it meant sacrificing his connections with his father. One evening, at a quiet garden party hosted by Troy's family, Vanessa approached Chell with a smug smile, her eyes filled with malice. "You really think you can change him, Chell? You don't belong here. You'll never be enough." Chell clenched her fists, her heart pounding with fury. "You don't know anything about love, Vanessa. You've only ever seen power and control. Troy deserves someone who sees him for who he truly is, not a puppet for your family's ambitions." Troy, who had been observing the conversation from afar, quickly intervened. He pulled Chell into his arms, shielding her from Vanessa's poisonous words. "Enough, Vanessa. You've crossed the line. This is my life, my choice, and Chell is the one I choose." The room fell silent as everyone turned to watch the heated exchange. Vanessa's smirk faltered, but her influence didn't waver. She knew that while Troy had stood by Chell's side, the battle was far from over. Determined to prove his commitment, Troy organized a private dinner for just him and Chell. They went to a secluded beach resort, away from the prying eyes of his family and their expectations. The moonlight cast a gentle glow over the ocean waves as they sat on the sand, the sound of the waves creating a serene atmosphere. Troy took Chell's hand in his gaze filled with sincerity. "This is our chance to build something real, Chell," Troy said softly. "A life where we decide the path we take, not them. Together, we can break free from their control." Chell's heart swelled with emotion. "But what if we fail? What if we lose everything?" Troy squeezed her hand gently. "Then we face it together. Love is the only thing that matters, and as long as we have each other, we can overcome anything." The night deepened, and for the first time in months, Chell felt a sense of peace. She leaned into Troy, trusting him with her heart, no matter how difficult the road ahead would be. With their decision to fight for their love solidified, Troy and Chell faced the challenges ahead with unwavering determination. Troy continued to distance himself from his family's influence, while Chell supported him every step of the way. They started to create their own path, one filled with small victories, from securing business deals to navigating social events without succumbing to Vanessa's manipulations. Every challenge made them stronger and more united. However, the battle wasn't over. Vanessa's scheming became more desperate as she realized her influence was slipping. She resorted to spreading rumors and creating alliances to discredit Chell and sabotage Troy's efforts. But Troy remained steadfast. With Chell by his side, they refused to let go of what they had built. Their love became their shield, and together, they emerged as a force to be reckoned with. The story ends with Troy and Chell standing hand in hand, gazing into the horizon. Despite the odds, they had found their strength, and with love as their foundation, they vowed to continue building a future where they could truly be free. As the tension between Troy and Vanessa escalated, the stakes were at their highest. Vanessa's manipulation reached new heights, targeting not only Troy but also Chell. The fear of losing everything, respect, power, and influence, pushed Vanessa to take desperate measures. The atmosphere was tense at a charity gala hosted by Troy's family. Everyone was watching as Vanessa made a bold move, spreading a false rumor that Chell had betrayed Troy's trust. The accusations spread like wildfire, and soon enough, whispers filled the room. Chell, feeling the sting of betrayal, stood tall beside Troy. "Enough, Vanessa," she said firmly, her voice calm yet firm. "Your lies will not break us. We stand together, no matter what." Troy's jaw clenched as he stared at Vanessa, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. "You've pushed too far this time, Vanessa. Your reign of control is over. Chell is the woman I love, and nothing you do will change that." Vanessa's usual smirk faltered, replaced by a look of panic. She knew her influence was slipping, but her pride wouldn't let her back down easily. "You think you've won, but you'll regret this. Chell will never fit into this world." But Troy's next words were resolute. "Chell is more than enough. She is strong, intelligent, and beautiful. Everything I've ever needed. And if that's not good enough for you, then that's your loss, not ours." The room fell silent as everyone watched the confrontation unfold. Vanessa knew she had lost. The era of her control was crumbling, piece by piece, and with Troy and Chell standing united, there was nothing she could do to stop them. With Vanessa defeated, Troy and Chell entered a new chapter of their lives. Freed from the weight of manipulation, they focused on building a future where love and trust were the cornerstones. Their business ventures thrived, fueled by their shared vision and commitment. Every challenge was met with unity, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Troy's family, while slow to fully embrace Chell, began to understand her worth. The more they witnessed her strength and compassion, the more they saw the person Troy had fallen in love with. One evening, during a quiet dinner with Troy's parents, his mother extended a hand toward Chell, a warm smile on her face. "Welcome to the family, Chell. It's about time we saw the light in you." Tears welled up in Chell's eyes as she took her future mother-in-law's hand. "Thank you, Mrs. Affable. I promise to cherish and protect this family with all my heart." Troy watched the exchange, his heart full of love and gratitude. The weight of expectations no longer burdened them, and together, they walked a path filled with hope and happiness. As the story ends, Troy and Chell stood hand in hand, overlooking their thriving empire. Their love had been tested, but it had endured, stronger than ever. With each new day, they built not only a legacy but a future filled with endless possibilities. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more delightful stories.